I personally hate reboots and remakes and reimaginings and all that shit because it doesn't really ruin anyone's childhood. That's kind of stupid to say. What it does is it ruins the legacy of something that was good. If you do a remake and it sucks, people are going to remember the remake first because it's more recent. That's just how it works. Let's say you mention Nightmare on Elm Street to someone 10 to 15 years younger than myself. You would get a reaction most likely like, oh, that shitty, boring movie from 2010? Which I would breathe a sigh of, no. The original from '84. Oh, that's from a long time ago. You must be old. Christ, I'm old.
You're so old, you're gonna die soon.
Well, here's 4 horror films that need to be remade. First up on the list is Chud, or Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. Man, this movie has Daniel Stern from Home Alone, and the voice of Kevin from the Wonder Years, and a very young John Goodman in his first appearance on screen. The story is about nuclear waste being dumped underground into the sewers. That mutates the people living underground, the homeless people, and they turn into the Chuds. The Chuds then rip apart and devour other people, and those that survive are usually turned into a zombie-like creature that will then mutate into a Chud. The story is basically of Resident Evil 2, both the original game and the remake game. So if they kept the practical effects and got a good cast with chemistry, a nice director, and really trimmed some of the fat out of it, you could have a decent movie. Or a good Resident Evil movie for once. I guess what I'm saying is Chud is actually an underrated classic, but it does need to be fixed up quite a bit. There's a few spots that could just be cut out altogether, and I think the whole story is trying to be interwoven, but it could be a little bit neater. It could be trimmed up, basically. And yes, I'll push for a good Resident Evil movie until the day I die. Next up is Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, or Blair Witch Project 2, Book of Shadows, or Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, or I don't know, it seemed to have different titles. Okay, I know this movie is bad, but there is a good story in there. You just need a good cast, a good director, and for the love of God, get an editor with some level of skill and competence. The movie wouldn't be so bad if it was edited properly. I mean, they spliced in these gruesome, violent scenes that don't really matter in the long run. There's no context to them. While the movie itself is very meta, it has a lot of things in it that make you question reality. And that's really the point of the film. In the film, it's a year later after the Blair Witch Project movie has been released. We follow a group of characters that are actually unreliable narrators. Each one of them has a different, unique perspective on the situation and what they believe is real and what they believe isn't real. As they enter the woods, they find other tourists, and you think nothing of it. It's just kind of odd. Well, later, those tourists are found dead, and all their stuff is trashed, and they're like, oh, it must have been a witch, right? And they play with the fact of whatever you see on film and what you see on video, what's true and what's false. They say that video never lies, so a lot of times during the film, you'll see people say and do things, but then you'll see on the camera, and it's something different. I actually wrote a script for a short film version of it a couple years ago. I mean, if it comes down to it, maybe I could make it. Because hey, the true sequel, The Blair Witch from 2016, that sucked ass too. Why don't you let me have a crack at it? Also, how could I forget to mention this guy? Jeffrey! What are you doing there, boy? You think you got powers dressed up in black? You think you use black magic? Now open the goddamn door, Jeffrey! That guy is goddamn ridiculous. 3. I choose Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. Now, I love this movie for 3 reasons. That's why I put it number 3. 1. Giant monster. 2. Brad Dourif. He's awesome. He doesn't do anything in the movie, but he's awesome. And 3. The actor, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, the actor Stephen Mott? Mock? There's Stephen Motti. Actor Stephen Mott. Or Mott. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. And 3, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Stephen Mott. Well, his accent, I should say. That Maine, New England accent thing he's got going on is the best part of the movie. My God. I ruined the film for my girlfriend because I was doing the accent while we were watching it. I couldn't help myself. It's too beautiful. You ever used a picker? Yeah. It's f***ing glorious. Yeah. I almost don't want it to be remade because of that accent. Because it's too perfect. Yeah. But the movie really does need to have other things done to it. But sadly the movie as a whole isn't that great, so it would need to be spruced up quite a bit to work. But that accent is a must. Last on our list is Phantoms. I know. Yes, even though Affleck is the bomb according to Jay, this movie really needs to be remade. And of course I have to mention that Liev Schreiber is creepy as hell in this movie, which is perfect for him. The story is based off of a book by Dean Koontz, a well-known horror author along the lines of Clive Barker and Stephen King. In the film, this amorphous creature can assimilate people and animals and such, just like The Thing. That's something that's been remade. So as the characters explore the town, which seems to be empty, and they eventually come in contact with a scientific character, a researcher guy, I don't know, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, and I've seen it twice. The film is rather dull, which probably adds to why you don't really notice too many things. But anyway, the creature has apparently lived for thousands upon thousands of years. Paper film. Even though it has lived that long, it has acquired knowledge mostly from the memories of people. So in its mind, in its own mind, the creature believes itself now to be the literal devil. And that's where the concept just is awesome. I'm like, that's kind of cool. This unknowable eldritch horror, very Lovecraftian, is now thinking, hey, you know what? I kind of fit the description of this here Satan fella. I like the cut of his jib. So if it was done right with a good director, a good cast, and stick with the practical effects, please, then this movie could be a very chilling film with a dark setting that all horror movie lovers love. It would be in the pantheon of horror legacy, and people would remember it because it's actually good. Oh, plus you could get Affleck to be the director. He'd be the bomb, yo.
You're so old, you're gonna die soon.
Into the sewers of New York. Is it New York? Fuck, I don't know. Unreliable narrator said that's not. As we follow them into the woods, they meet other hitchhikers. That is not correct. As they go into the woods on a tour hosted by Jeffrey, which I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, I'm sorry. Well, in the movie, it's this amorphous creature that kind of can assimilate people's shapes and whatnot, just like the Thing. I said whatnot. The story is based off of a book. Oh, and you could get Affleck to direct. He'd be the bomb, yo.